welcome back to the show. We are all here again. It's not just Jed by himself.
Well, Robert's missing. Gone but not forgotten.
Robert's gone, and Aaron is still gone. He has moved on. He graduated, so we'll get him hopefully back sometime. I don't know. Do you guys want Aaron back?
Yeah. Stefan is less thrilled by that.
There's no room on the couch. Sorry.
That's true. Not here. We only have a couch for two and a couch for one. So, we can have Robert on the floor. He's tall enough.
Yeah.
So, Aaron, however, you just see his forehead. So this week we are talking about another Legacy-quel. This week it is Blade Runner, and we just watched it, Stefan and I, for the first time. Jed has seen it before. I watched the first Blade Runner, Stefan as well, a couple of weeks ago. So this is all pretty fresh for us. But before that, did we want to talk about a specific TV show? Marvel?
Want to talk about it? Not particularly. Should we? Probably.
Okay. So this week we're going to bring up the one and only She-Hulk. What are you guys' thoughts on that?
A few months ago I realized that in the space of 40 days or something like that, we were going to be getting She-Hulk, Andor, The Rings of Power, and House of the Dragon.
True.
And I was at least looking forward to all of them. Some of them very excited, some, hey, I'll give it a shot. If this is the quality that we're going to be looking for
all these shows,
for all of these, I'm going to be very, very upset. It's not that She-Hulk was bad. It just had little in it that made me entertained or laugh or made me think oh wow, that's really deep or anything. It was just a whole bunch of nothing with an occasional bit of you really had to do that.
That's a good point. I think that's a pretty good summary. I would say for me as well, because I watched the whole episode. Except I didn't know about that after credit scene until later.
Yeah.
Oh,
I'm interested. Apparently, this is going to be the first Marvel show where every episode will have a post-credit scene. So that's something, I guess.
Well, it just means you have to sit through it longer.
Yeah. Way to rain on my parade. I'm trying to find a silver lining.
Yeah, so the show, I felt like it would have been okay. I don't know if the comics are like this, but in the show, you do find out that her powers, she's able to control them better.
Yeah.
And I'm no comic fan of her, so I don't know. I know that she can control her powers better in the comics, but it's just, that's her power.
She's not as strong, but she has more control.
Right, that's the downside. She's not as strong. But in this, she has the same powers, but she has more control because she's a stronger person, emotionally or something, than Bruce.
As a concept, I could buy that somebody who has more emotional resilience, given these same powers, would have greater control. I could buy that. But they didn't do anything in the show to tell you to justify why she would have greater emotional resilience. They tried. They said, hey look, I have to handle with being catcalled, and sometimes people criticize my work. And I can't talk back because people would say that I'm emotional or they try to kill me. And she's saying this to somebody who has witnessed the downfall of alien civilizations, has been a slave, has been a conqueror, a killer, somebody who is terrified at the slightest change of emotions. He could kill innocent people. All the terrible trauma this man has been through. Yeah, I don't buy it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The thing that I think is that they're overlooking is the fact that Bruce paved the work so that, if she took blood from Banner when he's Savage Hulk, no way. But this is Professor Hulk we're talking about. So he's already done things to his own body to enable him to be able to control the Hulk.
Yeah.
So I think he laid the groundwork. I don't think it's because she's particularly special. She is, and this is true in the comics, so it makes more sense in the comics because it's a full blood transfusion to save her life versus a little bit of that, and then she's got the monkey she's got the Hulk powers and all that. And I think that they're overlooking the fact that Bruce has worked for 15 or so years just to be able to control himself, and she's just piggybacking off of that work. And I think that's what's really going on. I don't know if the writers are smart enough to acknowledge that or to think that for themselves.
Like, I don't want to write off the show because it is possible that we are being set up for a twist. That, you know, we're being shown her with all her flaws, and it's just the audience misinterpreting it.
Yeah.
We've seen that before, like with Game of Thrones, where many people thought, oh, look at Daenerys, she's a great hero, look at her doing all these terrible, terrible things, and everyone else is saying like, no, look, she's doing terrible things, this is not going to end well.
Yeah.
And it's just, I don't know, maybe we're seeing something that the writers are trying to do and other people aren't seeing, but I'm guessing it's not working for us.
Yeah, they kind of do that pretty fairly well in Moon Knight, where I wasn't sure where they're going, but when they got to those deep stuff, I was like, I really like that actually. I don't know if they're going to be that clever. This just feels really goofy.
Yeah.
My big complaint, my big gripe is just because you want to have a character who's a little bit more risque, ask those kinds of questions like, is Steve Rogers a virgin or not? And then to answer the question in such a shameful way, like Captain America is now not a virgin because he wanted to sleep with one of the chorus girls or some girl he met on his tour across the U.S. and into Europe. I don't buy it, for one thing. For two things, is how am I supposed to root for a character who would fit more in a show like Rick and Morty, who's like interested in the personal sexual life of somebody else, and in writers who want to drag down somebody who is a pillar of righteous morality down to their level because they can't stand the idea that somebody could be a virgin and be faithful and wait.
Yeah.
It's very, I was watching Shad Diversity, great channel, check it out, and he's like, why do they virgin shame him? You know, they're used... We get upset when we have so-called slut shaming, but you know, what's with the virgin shaming, Hollywood? Why do you have to be upset because somebody is moral? And for me, it's a much bigger deal than just a joke, because it's supposed to juxtapose with Tony Stark, where he would do something like that and he becomes a better man.
Yeah.
Steve would never do something like that, but he learns to be a little bit more selfish and try to have a happy life, even if that means, you know, going back in time and everything. And he's always pining for this. He pines for this girl throughout the whole series, so much so that when he's in the future, he's with her, even if she can't remember him half the time. He goes to her funeral, and he would go back in time just to marry this girl. And we're supposed to believe he got together with some girl just to sleep with her, just to lose his virginity. I don't buy it.
Like, if you were to tell me that a wimpy kid who was then, you know, created into this, you know, absolute perfect specimen of a human being, went on tour and slept with a chorus girl or whatever, I could buy that. But not Steve.
No.
Especially not when one of the major points of the first movie was he's waiting for the right dance partner. He's holding out for Peggy. And to just say that, oh yeah, during one of those montages, I guess, no.
And I don't want...
It doesn't work with the character that they established. It doesn't work with the story that they were trying to tell at that time.
Right.
It's like, it'd be like if you were to learn in between Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi, that Luke, you know, joined the Dathomirian Night Sisters for a bit and learned some evil magic, and then, okay, so back to him being a Jedi and all that good stuff. You're like, okay, no, I could buy someone falling off the edge after learning their father, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
I can't buy that with Luke, and I can't buy that with the story they're trying to tell.
Yeah, and I think that's perfectly summarized. He's waiting for the right dance partner. And I don't want to be premature, but, you know, if it's true that this is now canon, like, I want to believe Bruce is just telling her this so she'll shut up about it.
Yeah.
Because it's really none of her business.
Yeah.
And frankly, it's none of Hulk's business either, if we're honest. But if it is canon, Kevin Feige's a hypocrite, because there's this wonderful story about Infinity War where they had the idea that Steve would be living with Sharon Carter. Right?
Yeah, Sharon Carter.
And
Kevin Feige didn't like that.
yeah, he's basically said, "What are you doing? What do you think you're doing? This is not the character." And he's like, "You scrap that idea. That's not what we're going. That's not where we're going with this character."
Well, it turns out that would have made the ending of Endgame not work.
Yeah.
If he was with Sharon Carter at the beginning of Infinity War, because it would have been just fresh in people's mind that he was with Sharon Carter's
Yeah.
Peggy Carter's niece.
Yeah.
You know, that would just be weird.
It's already weird enough that they kiss, but the idea of them living together is just.
Just like the idea of that, or that he slept with some random girl in 1943, it takes away. It doesn't make Peggy Carter the one. It makes her the one who got away. But which you can tell a story around that, but that wasn't the story they were telling. It was the one,
Yeah.
and then he lost her. But then a happy ending where, because of Deus Ex Machina, he gets to have her back. It was a wonderful
Right.
happy ending.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and it was so wholesome, right?
Mhm.
They dance, and it's like, oh, finally this guy can have that life.
Yeah.
And he's been waiting. Like, he's not haunted by visions of sleeping with some girl in 1943 in Age of Ultron. He's
Mhm.
thinking about Peggy. Everything always goes back to her. And when you sort of just make a joke about, oh, well, and why would he be a better person for sleeping with somebody? She-Hulk praises it because she's a morally depraved character who thinks that makes you a human being or intelligent. I don't know why. They think that when you have sexual relations in Hollywood, like, you have the eyes of God now, and you can see things differently. It's just the world has opened up. It's like, no.
Yeah.
Especially when it's casual like that, and we don't even know the supposed name of the girl. It's like-
Ranch.
It doesn't even make
ranch,
any sense. Exactly. I could do a whole video on this, honestly.
It speaks volumes about the show. I'll say this, that granted it's only one episode, but the thing that has given us the most content to analyze, to dissect, and all that was a joke in the opening and a joke in the end credits. Nothing from the actual meat of the episode.
Yeah. it's
No,
kinda
there's
sad.
nothing from her character that interests me in a way that I want to see where her story progresses. I don't care. I don't care about her. And there are just so many factors with this Captain America thing, which is way more interesting.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't make sense. Just him not knowing how to kiss, what's her face? Scarlett Johansson.
Yeah.
Natasha. That, and then how he's a goody two shoe. He says, "There's only one God, ma'am." He doesn't dress like that. He
Or he
goes out of
corrects
his
Tony for swearing.
or getting mad at Tony for swearing. Just
Or-
like he goes out of his way
Yeah.
to say things like, "Okay, you're a little uptight, man." Like,
Yeah.
you think this guy would have
that
slept
guy
with
was-
some dancer?
A strong Christian from 1943.
He's supposed to be the Russo
Standards are a
brothers.
little different then.
The Russo brothers got him better, I think.
Yeah.
Or whoever was writing that, just they got him better. He was a goody two shoes. His problem was he was a little too uptight.
Right.
And then in Endgame, that's when he loosens up.
Yeah.
If you had said maybe then he slept with somebody,
I wouldn't love it, but I could buy it.
it would make a little more sense. But Cap from 1940s,
No.
not at all. Not
Yeah.
even a little.
When that secretary lady kisses him, I was always under the impression this is the first time he's ever made physical contact with a girl.
Yeah.
Period. There's no way a man who has slept around would be like surprised by this or just like
Yeah.
that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So it's dumb.
Yeah.
But going to back to She-Hulk, what I wish it was, Fantastic Four, the 2005 film that actually came out,
Mm-hmm.
the first film. She should have been more like the Thing, where she's uncomfortable with her body, and then when she finally learns to revert back to human form.
Mm-hmm.
She's like, oh, and then she sees that people need the She-Hulk, kind of like the Thing in that
Right.
movie, and it kind of be a body horror kind of adjustment.
Mm-hmm.
And awkward. She can't grab anything right because everything crushes under her.
So you're telling me it would actually be something that would focus on not a uniquely feminine issue, but one that is especially prevalent among women, that is issues about how they perceive their body and learning to accept and love yourself the way you look?
Yep. It's basically Penelope the movie.
I'd watch that.
So yeah. And that's what I always imagined it should have been.
Yeah,
It's just the story of the Thing.
I'll say this for it. While I'm not a fan of it so far, either the depiction of the character, the way they're taking the show, I do think Tatiana Maslany was well cast. She's able to deliver, some of the like the snarkiness. Like her chemistry with Mark Ruffalo is good. You see, like a lot of the time it bugs me when you're watching a show or a movie and somebody's playing a lawyer, and you're just like, you don't know what you're saying. When she yells out legal jargon, I totally buy it.
Like-
So I think she's well cast. It's just she's not given good material to work with. So
No.
the MCU continues its good casting streak, I guess.
Yeah, they tend to be good at casting. With
Yeah, good job,
like
Sarah Haley Finn.
one or two exceptions maybe.
Yeah.
But again, like you said, they're not doing anything of interest with her, which
Mhm.
is a shame because it's so easy.
Yeah.
Any other thoughts?
No, I'm good. I'm good with She-Hulk. I'm good with talking about her.
Yeah.
You're done?
I'm done. Yeah.
Cool.
She's like I said, I just don't care about her character. I think the best Phase 4 new female character is
America's Chavez.
not America Chavez.
For me, it's Yelena.
It's Kate
Yeah,
Bishop.
Yelena.
Kate Bishop's
Kate
fine.
Bishop's good too.
Yeah,
I like
Elena's
both.
pretty okay.
Pretty okay. An extreme amount of average.
Yes, yes. She exceeds at being above
Adequate.
above horrible.
I kind of like her in some ways better than Natasha just because she sticks with the Russian accent.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And she can be deadly, but she's also goofy.
and she's likable.
And sometimes at the same
Yeah.
time.
Yeah,
Like
deadly.
the Kate Bishop. Kate Bishop.
Okay. What was when she slaps her? What was that?
Or just
So-
showing up in her apartment unannounced, but then, hi!
Yeah, eating the freaking
It's
macaroni.
like, you done? I can add hot sauce?
And she's like, yeah, so yeah, she's good. I like Kate Bishop. I like Elena.
Mhm.
They're
Yeah.
good replacements for Hawkeye and Black Widow.
Yeah.
You know,
In
I'm
fact,
not
they
upset
might
with
be
that.
they might be better than the originals.
Potentially, I think. Yeah.
So
I've always liked Clint, but he could be replaced.
Yeah.
so those are good. The She-Hulk, she's definitely worse so far. We'll see where that goes.
Yeah.
Don't ruin Daredevil, you guys. Like
Please.
that's the holy grail.
They
It's
already
the
have.
the last two good things you have left going for you, like in my opinion, that you really have going for you.
Mm.
You know, I like Doctor Strange, but he's not one of those two things.
Yeah.
It's Spider-Man, and you don't even have that technically.
Right.
And Daredevil. Don't screw up Daredevil, man.
Mm.
You have potential for other projects, but those things we know are good.
Doctor
Don't
Strange
do it.
is still okay.
Right.
Yeah, but he's not like he's become increasingly important, but if we no longer saw him again, we'd be wondering what happened to him, not why has no one addressed what happened to him.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of true. I
But-
just kind of forget about him.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's
Yeah.
true.
All right, I think we should move on. We spent enough time talking about Marvel.
Yeah.
What we came here for is Blade Runner.
Blade Runner 2049.
49.
A movie that, okay, I'll say this for it. I'm glad it was made.
Mhm.
I don't know why it was made.
Good
I
question.
say that because it clearly, I mean, just watching the movie, every single cent of its like $10 billion budget is on the screen. It looks gorgeous. The production design is amazing. The sets are big. There's so much CGI, and the CGI is excellent. The original Blade Runner made no money, and it's
Yeah.
the definition of a cult classic. Why did they give it a $10 billion budget? It did not come close to making its money back. I'm glad it was made. No one went to go see it.
Yeah, I mean, and I don't blame people. The pattern is they didn't see the original, right? And the original it's that one was confusing. It wasn't that it looked bad at all,
No, the production was great.
but it was confusing. And it was like, huh.
Yeah.
And so it wasn't Raiders of the Lost Ark, which was very palatable, or
Yeah.
Star Wars, which is also very palatable, or even Alien, which
Anybody can get the concept.
yeah, you can get the concept. Not anyone wants to see that movie, but
Sure.
you can understand. Whereas Blade Runner was like, it has elements from all those things, but it's not those kind of stories. It's truer to sci-fi, truer to the form of sci-fi than all of those other films. Which real sci-fi tends to beg questions rather than have flashing lasers and all that.
Yeah.
So with this second one, I felt like it was, for me, it was a little easier to follow. Quite a bit easier. And Jed would point out as we were watching it, now this feels more like a detective story. And I was like, yeah, this is more like a detective story. And there's a fairly good twist as well. My only gripe is it was long. and as Jet said,
It's like an hour longer than the original.
Yeah, it's long and slow, and you can feel the slowness whenever they linger on a moment where somebody's just looking around or whatever. And
Or just talking. And I would say it suffers from some of the sins from the first movie, where it's kind of hard to tell what's going on because it's dark at times.
Yeah.
And some of the sound quality gets too loud for the music. At least we just played it on my TV, you know.
Yeah.
And
It's probably one of those movies where they say, oh, but it was meant to be seen and heard on the big screen, your TV can't handle it. I'm like, okay, great. I didn't get a chance to see it on the big screen, and so does that mean I'm just doomed to not get the full experience for the rest of my life?
There's the sound design to expand on that. It's just there's parts where the music would get too loud, or just the background sound effects.
The rain or waves or just general engines in the background.
Exactly, and you have to turn down the volume just so you can like think. And then once they start talking, you're like, oh, I can't hear what they're saying. I hope it's not important.
Yeah.
Turn it up again. So that I think it suffers from that same sin, and from the same sin of I don't know. I got lost a couple times. It was still a little confusing, at least to me, but it wasn't nearly as confusing as that first one.
Yeah,
we watched the unicorn cut, so that was really confusing.
Yeah, oh gosh, that's a story for another time. How much I hate that, but I think 2049 is one of the greatest sequels ever made. Not in terms of just like sheer quality of the movie. That'd be something like Return of the King or Godfather Part 2. I mean, this movie's very good, but not quite as good as those, at least for me. I think it's one of the best sequels in that it takes everything that was good about the original and does it just as good, if not better. And then almost everything that was not good about the original, it makes good. There are one or two things that are about the original, like Brendan was saying, like it's kind of hard to hear sometimes, kind of hard to see sometimes, that are better but still not good. Yeah. But it recognized its strengths. It understood the source material and said, okay, what can I do to translate this better to a modern audience? Like, okay, it's fun to watch Harrison Ford get tossed around by a guy with a weird mustache in the original. But the action in this, even though it's not an action movie, the action was really good.
It's better than the original.
Oh, yeah.
Like, the end of I think the end of the original is just my favorite. Like, from that point on where Deckard faces, is it Roy?
Roy Beatty.
Yeah. Once he faces him and they have their exchange and chase, I was like, okay, I'm really digging this quite a bit.
Yeah.
And it ends really well. Like Jed said, the action in here is like, oh, okay, we got things rolling a bit faster than the original, where it's very confusing with that opening interview, and then the guy shoots the guy in the face.
Yeah.
The thing that I was curious about, and I wanted your guys' take, do you guys think we're supposed to either just care about K/Joe or really care about J or K/Joe? Because in my mind, it's like he's set up so that he's pathetic enough that you don't have to care about him a whole lot, but you could care about him a whole lot more, if that makes sense.
Yeah, he's not the most relatable protagonist ever. In fact, there's very little with which I relate to him. But I do find his story compelling in that he has no identity. It's been brainwashed out of him. Not because he's a replicant, but because of what the society does to replicants. But how he realizes, he goes on this journey of, okay, I don't have to listen to any of that. I can be someone. I can do what I want. Not because I can do that in spite of being a replicant, but because that doesn't matter. It was a good way of saying what the original said, but in a new way. So I really liked it, but he died at the end. I'm just like, okay, cool.
Yeah, it's kind of. I feel like Roy Beatty was a bit deeper.
Yeah, Roy is, I think, the one element that is absolutely done better in the original. I think the only thing that comes close in this is Joy.
Yeah. Because I was talking to Brendan, I said it would have been interesting if it turned out, you're not Deckard's kid, but you're like Roy's kid.
That could work.
And those two, it turned out, that a replicant and a replicant could reproduce,
Mm-hmm.
and that's why they were so determined to live.
Yeah.
And he ended up being this offshoot, and he has like a normal life,
Mm-hmm.
and that would have been something. But obviously, they didn't go that route with him.
Yeah.
But just and I agree that for storytelling purposes, it is good. It is well done. But as far as just observing him, his life,
Mm-hmm.
what he does for a living, what's his job, ripping people's eyeballs out,
Mm-hmm.
sitting there being in love with a hologram, it's hauntingly similar to how people are today
Yeah.
in a lot of ways, and it's sad and pathetic, and it's especially when you find out his holographic girlfriend is just this very generic.
Yeah, that was
thing.
crushing.
Yeah, it was
I like the humanizing bit where she names him, gives him an identity, calls
Joe.
him Joe, and then when you find out, oh, that's just something that's programmed into her, it's like, oh, you're an average Joe, you're a nobody.
Yeah, that that was super crushing. It was like, so this thing that I thought was programmed specifically for him, or that
Yeah.
he did himself, it's just programmed to love you and to listen to you and do whatever you want.
I mean,
and
you
love
see
is
it.
Loosely used.
You see it all the times throughout the movie on advertisements for her. Everything you want to see, everything you want to hear.
Yeah.
But you're thinking the whole time, okay, yeah, but that's the product. She's become something new, not realizing, no, she's doing exactly what she's supposed to. She's programmed to do that.
Yeah, she's not. She's not Rachel. She's not special.
Yeah.
She's not unique.
She's like an e-girl today. She's like what guys simp after. She's the perfect computer girl.
Yeah. She ironically
She's
isn't human.
Yeah.
But
Tinder
she is
belt
the one who
pure
wants
man.
most to be human.
Yeah.
It's quite sad. I for one did like what's the main character's name? Ryan Gosling.
Okay.
Okay. Or Joe.
Joe. That's right, because he's average Joe. I did like his story. I couldn't help but just think about the Clone Wars and how
Yeah.
the clones are seen as less than human to some of the galaxy
Mm-hmm.
and to some of the Jedi, honestly.
Yeah. Kana Yuki Adi Mundi and Luminara.
And or Krell, for
Mace
example,
Windu.
or Mace Windu. But yeah, Mace Windu, he showed signs of compassion.
Yeah, he's not as bad as some of the others.
Yeah, but I specifically thought of the arc of Umbara,
Mm-hmm.
where that's really the episode where Rex and
Jesse.
Fives and Jesse, they all that's when they start to stand up for themselves, and because
Mhm.
Krell is treating them like, oh, you're numbers,
They're disposable.
you're disposable, you're supposed to be thrown to the side. I mean, that show made me a sucker for you're just a nobody.
Uh-huh.
Get in line. You're one in a million. You're not one in a million. Your face is just like everyone else's. And as a kid going through high school, that's kind of how you feel sometimes. You
Mhm.
feel like a clone. You feel like you're just going through the system. You're just another face.
You're a part of this group or that group, but you're going to be a part of one of the groups.
Yeah.
And your purpose is to do this in the end. So I always related to the clones. So I actually like this Kay's story in this
Mm-hmm.
because Stephen pointed out he's kind of used as a pawn for Harrison Ford. They make him think that he's the child,
Yeah.
but in reality, he's just being used.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, yeah, he is being a pawn, but when he realizes that he's their son, that's what breaks him out of the mold.
Yeah.
That's what makes him think, oh, I can think however I want.
It's like, I'm special because of who I am. But then, at the end of the movie, he realizes, no, I'm special because of who I am, not because of who my parents were or weren't.
It's like as if they had done the what I wish they would have done in the 9th episode of Star Wars with Rey.
Yeah.
Like, she doesn't need parents to be special. She could have they could have gone somewhere different.
Yeah.
I still think they needed something to explain her powers, but at least on screen.
Yeah,
but-
Robert and I were talking about the surprising similarities between at least The Last Jedi and Blade Runner 2049. One of them is, oh, this person, they're special because of where they come from and all this, and then you learn it then. No, they're just special because they are. It's inherent in who they are. They don't need to justify it by saying, oh, he gets free will because he's Rick Deckard's son. No, they don't need that. it goes against the messages of this story. And then the other, which this wasn't a problem for me, but I do think it works better in Blade Runner. Both Luke and Rick Deckard ran away from their family in order to try and keep them safe. But the different, and in their old age, they're kind of cynical and upset about a lot of things, about the way that life has turned out. The difference being that Rick is actually right and Luke is wrong to do so.
Right.
Really, that's the only difference.
Yeah, and that's the big difference.
Yeah.
There are a lot of similarities. I was thinking mostly Rise of Skywalker, but Last Jedi is accurate as well to throw in those similarities. And it would have been nice if Rey had that moment where she's staring at the hologram, so to speak.
Yeah.
And say,
like maybe she sees, cloned other attempted things in Exegol.
Or just her her parents or something, and she says, I'm the good guy because I choose to be.
Yeah.
Kay thought, oh, I'm the good guy now because my parents are unique, therefore I am unique. But the reality is, he's like, wait a second, I proved that I could make a choice for myself and I could do the right thing. And I'm going to keep doing the right thing. Once he sees that hologram, he's like, everything else was fake. It was designed to keep me at bay. It's very much in line with Fahrenheit 451 with Montag, when he, finally stops just burning the books, starts consuming the books. He acquires knowledge and intelligence, and he begins to think for himself and to push all those superficial technologies aside that try to keep him from thinking and keep him from doing things and living life. Same thing with Kay here. It's very similar, and that is something that I did like, and I think we can all agree on. Whether or not you're supposed to relate to the character per se, this story is very well told.
Yeah, no, I liked it, like I said. And it's like the same thing as how, granted I don't like who kills him, but Gregor in Rebels gets killed. He was a cool commando in Clone Wars, and he gets killed by a wimpy officer dude in Rebels, which I think is lame. But at least his last line was pretty cool. He's like he says something to the lines of, "I'm glad I got to serve along you, Captain Rex, and fought for something I actually believe in." And you contrast that to someone like Jesse in the final season of Clone Wars.
Yeah.
He was forced to, execute Order 66, and he died trying. And his life really in the end meant nothing, which I think is just the biggest tragedy of all, because the clones, after they realize we're individuals, we can actually do what we want, they actually can't. Yeah, I think that's the most tragic part of the Clone Wars. And that really, to me, kind of relates to this K, because in the end, he's like, I can do what I want, and I'm going to die like Gregor, doing what I believe is right.
As a free man.
As a free man.
Very much like Roy.
Yeah. I was thinking of something just now. The original, it's hard to really say who the villain of the original Blade Runner is.
Yeah.
Because Roy Beatty is absolutely the antagonist, but it's hard to say that he's wrong in what he's doing. In this one, the villain is very clearly Jared Leto, who usually is weird and over the top and crazy. Here he's weird and understated and crazy, and I actually think it works really well. It's him and then his assistant Love. I find the inputting of giving a simpler villain, I usually find that would be a step down. For me, I think it works for the story because there isn't really a good side in this. There's a cause to fight for that is right, but you see how the underground replicant society, they're just like, okay, you should go kill Rick Deckard for us because we can't have any of this getting out, so please assassinate him for us. You see society, even the cops, his boss played by Robin Wright, even though she's one of the good guys, you still see her say really casually terrible things like, sometimes I forget you're one of them.
Yeah, or you haven't been done a disservice not having a soul.
Yeah.
Or whatever.
And so really, at the end of the day, because Joy isn't real, Kay is the only one that you can really root for. Kay and Rick, who almost only comes in as a plot point, 3/4 of the way through the movie.
Yeah, and it's amazing that, well, it was refreshing not to just watch old Harrison Ford get killed off.
Yeah.
So, which I thought was interesting because he would have been the easy one to kill off, but instead they kill off the new guy.
Yeah.
And I thought, wow, that's fascinating and kind of refreshing because his story. It's still in a way Deckard's story because he's going to go be with his daughter.
Yeah.
And that's a nice thought. Ended a pretty pleasant ending, and I guess the original had a pleasant ending as well. But this time it's not that Deckard learns that replicants are basically human. It's that I don't know that he learns anything, but I think I'm about to call him Roy. Kay learns something about himself, and that he's more than just the programming, like a clone or something.
Yeah.
I mean,
He's more than what society made him.
He's learning, the lesson from the first film for himself through his own experiences.
Yeah,
So that was good.
It's something that, speaking of Blade Runner 2049 as a legacy sequel, because not a lot of people saw Blade Runner, and even though they were crazy, the studio obviously hoped that a lot of people would see this. It was a good way to do and say what the original did, but in a completely different way. And so, if you compare that to, say, The Force Awakens, it's doing what A New Hope did, it's saying what A New Hope said, but not in a way that's ultimately all that different. Some of the set dressing is different, the characters are different, but not the messages or the plot or the structure or anything.
Right, and it didn't improve upon it either, which was the big loss for me. Versus this, it is definitely an improvement from the original. For one thing, I mean, Deckard is a bit too aggressive in his romantic pursuits.
Wee bit.
But
which I understand, because in the movie he's trying to convince himself that Rachel isn't human when he's doing that. But it doesn't come off feeling that it's gross, it's weird, it's hard to root for him.
Right. Versus Kay, he's not like that, but he's just as pathetic in a different sense. Not that compared to Deckard, he's not doing anything particularly wrong. It's just pathetic, and it's not good. So I guess it would be wrong if it's not good. So.
Yeah.
But I think overall, this one probably the first one I was like, it gets a C because I really like the end.
Yeah.
The second one is like a B because it's an improvement from the first. And
it's pretty consistently good throughout.
Yeah.
Whereas the first one's
very uneven.
Yeah, has its moments.
Oh
like
gosh,
you said,
the snake
moment.
stripper scene. Oh gosh, where he's going backstage and like, hey, I gotta talk here because I have to disguise myself. Oh gosh.
It's like they don't even know who you are, man.
Yeah.
Just talk a little.
Thankfully, Ryan Gosling does no impressions in this movie.
Yeah, that would have been so weird because this is basically his acting. It's just neutral face, just walking
Yes.
around.
Well, what
Red Letter Media has a great video about his performance in that movie.
It's great. Like, can we get somebody else? This guy's too charismatic.
I think both these movies nail the atmosphere.
Yeah,
Just like
both in terms of the
where you
production
are.
and just the general direction.
You feel like you're part of this horrible, disgusting, futuristic world where
It's absolutely hopeless.
where you actually see people, like Stefan mentioned earlier, that are kind of like these futuristic people. It's like, oh, well, you don't need a soul,
Yeah.
You don't need that to have a fulfilling life and stuff like that. So I think it's really cool. I like the aesthetics of how the technology is advanced, but it feels like it came out of, like it advanced from the 80s or something.
Digital screens everywhere, but it's still, you hear the whirring and clicking as you manually move the analog bits.
Yeah, and the screens are like, that big.
Yeah.
They're tiny. They don't have iPads. They don't have iPhones. It's just, it feels like, I like that.
It's its own world, yeah.
I'm glad they didn't change that for the sequel. And while I did complain about the sound design and the lighting and stuff, at least it did feel like a sequel in those
Yeah.
ways. It's like, okay, they're being faithful to the first one.
Yeah.
Maybe I
Maybe-
wouldn't have done that, but I do feel like I'm in the same world.
Yeah, it doesn't stray too far. It doesn't feel like Blade Runner anymore, but it's not doing the same thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I like the world of the original Blade Runner. Maybe it's because of how much practicality because they had no choice back then.
Yeah.
And the new Blade Runner world that I didn't like so much is they really advertise on the sex a lot. So much so that there's
Right.
basically people in these last tubes doing it, and it's just like, ugh.
Yeah,
I mean, it's icky and it fits, but it's not something from the original that I appreciate.
It feels like a natural progression of where things were then, and
Yeah.
a reflection on our society now and where it's headed.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's just like we're spending some time on this, aren't we?
Yeah, yeah, and it's not just one thing; it's several
Yeah,
things. that goes
you can
into that.
show that sort of thing
Yeah.
without showing it. You know
Right,
what I mean?
right.
You can sometimes you can imagine scarier things.
Yeah, you very much get the. You can feel that Denis Villeneuve is a French Canadian. He's like, okay,
Yeah.
yes, and then we show the naked people here, and then
we
we
have
do
naked
this.
statues here, and all the original at worst it had backstage to a strip club, and you
Right.
didn't necessarily see people stripping down naked.
Mhm.
So it's like, yeah, there is a progression, and that is kind of the progression of society from the 80s to now. It's like you have internet.
Yeah, you had to search for it back then. You
Yeah.
can't get away from it now.
Yeah, you have internet porn, which is free access to anybody, versus you have to go find the strip
You have to
club
go to
or
the
the
store.
Playboy,
Mm-hmm.
and you have to pay money to access that kind of stuff.
You
Yeah.
have to be more public about it. Now it's
Or find a little
Yeah.
peep, or you gotta find a little peephole to see a beautiful body or whatever. Stupid accents.
Yeah. Oh gosh.
so. I think overall we like the sequel.
Mm.
It
Definitely
delivered
is
on making the. You said it's better.
I think so.
It definitely delivered on the same atmosphere, same. I feel like I got the same feeling. I felt like I was in the same world,
Yeah.
and I'm glad we visited new worlds.
Mm-hmm. Or at
New
least you're
areas.
like, we're going out into the countryside or
And, like,
seeing
this
a
place is
completely
all-
abandoned city.
It's all dusty and everything looks yellow.
Yeah.
You know, I like that.
As opposed to the original, which feels like it takes place in 2 neighborhoods in LA at most.
Yes. That is. I'm glad we went somewhere else because I was getting tired of the rain and sadness, and
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it was cool to go
Now we
somewhere
get to
else.
see dry sadness
Yes,
Yeah.
dry sadness, but
And
at
it-
least it looks nice.
That orange sequence in the orange dust in
Vegas.
is basically the director's audition for Doom, pretty
Mm.
much.
And that sequence is definitely what won Roger Deakins his first cinematography Oscar. And you feel in that sequence what we saw a lot of in 1917 in the city and fire at nighttime.
Oh yeah, I loved
Yeah.
1917. Great movie.
Oh yeah, that's good.
The same cinematographer. huh?
Same cinematographer. He
So
won an
he did
Oscar for both.
Blade Runner, Dune, and 1917.
He didn't do Doom.
Oh.
That was Greg Fraser, who did the Batman.
Also a great cinematographer.
Did Rogue One. He did a lot of the cinematography for the first season of The Mandalorian. So he's very skilled, and
You know, I did think the first season of Mandalorian was more cinematic.
he knows how to work with the volume better than anyone else.
Yeah.
That's why in the Batman,
Yeah,
Like,
there
I
were
don't know
some
if
scenes
he's
with
the
the
one-
volume, and you
I
wouldn't
don't know if he's the one who said it, but somebody said that, you know, we've only seen the volume, we've only seen like deserts and, you know,
Mhm.
just kind of crappy places. We're actually going to see a city
Yeah.
in the Batman. You know, kind of bashing on the
And it's totally seamless.
the Mandalorian.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
So
It
that's
is-
cool.
It is seamless. It's
Yeah,
excellent.
I thought it was. I don't know. I thought it was real. I thought they were on some scaffolding up
Yeah,
there,
yeah,
and they just had to get up early in the morning. I was like, wow, that's great lighting.
yeah.
It's because it was crafted.
It's engineered to be perfect.
Yeah. So
Well done.
yeah. So while this movie delivered, it didn't quite.
It's not like
Get a
it
bag-
changed cinema forever. right?
Yeah, and it didn't get a better message. It didn't improve on the message of the first movie.
Yeah. Maybe it found
I found it.
not an arguably better way, but at least a different way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Rather than being inferior, it at least matched it.
I think I agree with Stefan that overall, from beginning to end, it's a better movie than the first one.
Mm-hmm.
But the first one does have a better ending than
Yeah.
the second one. So I think I agree with that. I'd probably give him about the same score just because of that.
Sure.
Because that ending, the Tears in the Rain. That's a good speech.
Yeah, it's legendary.
And as soon as they started playing that music from that scene in the second movie, I was like, I know what they're going for, but it's just not quite as powerful.
Yeah.
I did like it. I am a sucker for
Yeah.
You're just a face out of a million.
Mhm.
The Clone Wars thing that I learned as a kid. It's like, no, you're not. You're actually special. You can do what you want. You can change the system if you want.
Yeah.
You can fight for what you believe in, not what people tell you to believe in.
Mm-hmm.
So I really, really do like that, but it didn't quite nail it as good as I would want. But it was still good.
Yeah.
Still good.
Yeah. Yeah, ultimately, I don't regret seeing it. I don't regret seeing it, I think, 4 times now. It's very good. Not a movie that I'm like, you know what? I haven't seen this in 2 months. I'm going to watch it because it's a commitment.
Yeah, it is.
But I enjoy it quite a bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Any final thoughts, Stefan?
No, I think you said pretty much. Oh, yes, I do actually. I just remembered.
Here we go.
I'm just glad there's no unicorns or pigeons in this one. So. Yeah, that was refreshing too.
Like the one or 2 animals show up at maggot things, and okay, you're at a farm that makes maggots.
And a
sure.
dog.
And then a dog.
A dog.
Sure. And I love that line. It's like, is it real? I don't know. Ask him.
I should ask him. He made a joke about the dog responding. Oh, I think I am a dog. Am I a dog? And he like summarizes the whole
dog.
crux of the Blade Runner films. It's
Yeah.
just like, am I a real dog? If I am not a real dog, can I be just as real as a real dog if I'm a genetically altered?
Right.
It's beautiful.
Yeah.
All
But at the
right.
same time, that offhand joke does sum up the whole ethos of the Blade Runner stories. It's,
Yeah.
I don't know. It doesn't matter. Ask him. That's
Yeah.
what matters.
What you do will determine what kind of person you'll be perceived as.
Mm-hmm.
And even if you're not human, you can still be a person of sorts, I
Yeah.
guess.
I agree. And
All right.
I
Yeah.
don't know.
This would be the part where normally we hand it off to Robert to tell everyone the places we can be found.
yeah,
So
where can we be found?
we're gonna go off and try and do our best from memory here. We can be found at Twitter at Of Cinematics. Go ahead and follow us there. Go ahead and subscribe to us on YouTube, or if you want to catch up with our audio editions for the last 2 weeks, make sure to follow us on Anchor. We can also be found on Spotify, Google Podcasts, lots of other places. Just make sure to support us if you can. We would really appreciate it, even just something as small as like $1 or $5 a month. I mean, hey, that's less than a fast food meal. So we would appreciate it, but don't feel obligated.
Check out the Ink Spill trailer.
Yeah.
It has the highest views so far of any of our videos.
Mm-hmm. So
And-
yeah, we've got that coming from Aaron, still working
Yeah.
with us.
Yep, and we've got exciting projects in the near future, or hopefully the near future, we'll
Hopefully.
see. Dealing with that universe, so please check that out and look forward for more to come.
Yeah.
Sounds good. Thank you for joining us. Signing out.